Ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and ask Mr. Kiley to lead us in a pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If I could ask you to remain standing. We all woke up this morning to the news of the tragedy in Las Vegas. I think it's important that we keep the victims, the first responders, and their families in our thoughts and prayers, and I ask you to take a moment of silence on their behalf. Thank you. This is a special meeting of the Board of Selectmen, October 2nd, 2017. We will not have minutes, as is normal for special meetings. However, we will get into some appointments. And, gentlemen, it's okay to take these all at one time?
Sure.
Please. We have some appointments. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the H. Smith Richardson Clubhouse Building Committee. This does require RTM approval. Edna Albrecht, Democrat, 323 Old Mill Road. Christopher Kokotis, Democrat, 122 Oldfield Drive. Craig Curley, Republican, 109 Lakewood Drive. Don DiMartino, Republican, 84 Sunset Circle. Frank Geiger, unaffiliated, 301 Adley Drive. Tamara Gorino, unaffiliated, 176 Bryan Drive. Jeffrey Hendrickson, unaffiliated, 1982 Merwins Lane. Kimberly Marshall, Democrat, 180 Brookbend Road. Brian Nareau, Republican, 105 Mountain Laurel Road. Harold Schwartz, Democrat, 400 Eastfield Drive. And Jack Slane, Democrat, 35 Bailey Road. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Any consideration on this board? I believe a whole lot of folks are here. I know Chris Kokotis wasn't here and Jeff Hendrickson couldn't be here. I thought everybody else might be. So if you need to ask any questions, we can, but any comments?
No questions, just a big thank you. As my comment, I mean, once again, our town is lucky to have so many qualified and interested and dedicated volunteers who want to step up and help our town, specifically with this building project, which is very important. We have some great backgrounds here. We have some highly qualified, interested people, and I'm happy to support the entire group. Thank you.
Chris?
I'm happy to support the group as well. I wish you the best of luck. The Smith Richardson Golf Clubhouse is something which has been long overdue if you talk to any one of the members or any one of the golfers who goes there often. So you guys have a big task in front of you. I wish you the best of luck and come back, share updates with us, keep us in the loop, and good luck.
Yeah. I think overall, we had over 24 people respond, and that was just tremendous from the building committee. We had tremendous backgrounds. We could have, as I mentioned to several folks I talked to, we could have picked 2 building committees out of this. So getting on here was either luck of the draw or tremendous accomplishment on behalf of our volunteers. Not getting on this was certainly not reflective of anything other than we just had such a great response. In addition to this group, we've been asked by the liaison, by the Golf Commission to have a liaison, and that's in the charge. We've also been asked by Parks and Rec to have a liaison member, so whenever a chairman is picked, I will get with them and talk about the specific liaisons to kind of be included in the process. This board, a month or so back, did pick an owner's rep company to be used by this board. We're trying something a little bit different. We want to get an owner's rep group on board right from the start to help out our volunteers. We're kind of beta testing that concept with this building committee. If it works, we'll apply it other places. If it doesn't, we'll tweak it and see what we have to do. We're trying to get a little better communication, a little better response, a little better support for our building committees as we go forward from that. The other thing we're going to ask is that there's more communication earlier in the design process back to the board so we can have some of that discussion so we can kind of bring everybody along with this. This is something that's been out there for a number of years. There have been a number of things discussed. Some support the golf mission. Some are over and above the golf mission, so we want to have that discussion. Certainly in this economy, we've got to be conscious of every single dollar that we spend being something that creates good value and is appropriate at this time. So, and again, I want to echo my colleagues' comments in terms of thanking everybody for stepping up and hanging with us. It took us a little while to get here. Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Congratulations and thank you all.
Thank you.
I would point out that it is subject to RTM approval. Kathleen Griffin in my office, if you'd contact her to sort out the upcoming RTM meetings and what's taking place at that point. All right, next up is the Fairfield-Ludlow High School Building Committee to hear an update from the Fairfield-Ludlow High School Building Committee on the window replacement project. So Donald, are you ready to step us through
I got
this?
some bigger copies than the one that probably came through.
And my glasses appreciate this.
I remember that from the last time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so again, Mark Donald, Chairman of the Fairfield Ludlow Building Committee. Happy to report that the project is proceeding as planned in regards to the last phase of the project, as we labeled it, which is the installation and remediation of PCBs. Under Gilbane's leadership, we were able to complete 70% of the installation, which, as you'll see on the completed, these are the ones that have in fact been completed. The highlighted ones were the ones due to be replaced. And so, as I said, we're ahead of schedule on that, 70% completed. Happy to report that at this point the contingency is still intact in regards to that. We haven't touched that. And obviously, well, there's a reason the contingency's there. We're hoping to impact that as little as possible with the remaining 30%. The remaining 30% we will begin at the close of school next year. Unfortunately, the level of work and it makes it doing it in an occupied space is just not doable. We also, over the summer, we had a public meeting in regards to some new PCBs we found in lead paint in the 1960 and 61 edition, which is not part of the project. However, their EPA regulations currently state that there has to be some level of addressing it. We also actually, in addition to that, had a faculty meeting 3 weeks ago on September 12th, and where we addressed teacher and faculty concerns. So currently, we've done several air and wipe tests. There's no presence of PCBs in the air, nothing on the walls. It's behind multiple layers of paint. So there's no risk, health risk or anything in regards to anyone who's in the building, staff or students.
And if I might, you
Yes.
had an update this past July on just that topic.
Right.
That you held for parents, teachers, anybody else who wanted to.
Right, so we had that, I believe it was July 11th, we had the public meeting on that, and it was attended by members of the public and members of the boards, where we addressed any concerns. Woodard and Curran, who is our environmental consultant, they presented and really did a good, thorough job of explaining to the public what our procedures and our next steps were. Obviously, during the summer, a lot of the faculty were away or were not able to attend. So we went September 12th and presented them along with Mr. Cleary from the Health Department, members from Gilbane and Woodard and Curran, and addressed some of the concerns from the faculty. That I was unable to attend that, but my understanding is faculty, they obviously have some next steps and questions that it allayed some of their fears and concerns. And then now, at this point, we have to submit something to the EPA by the end of the calendar year, which is our plan for addressing the mediation or remediation or removal of the PCBs. So we don't really have a clear expectation of potential cost impact right now, especially as things are changing with EPA regulations. I think the most important thing from a committee and a parent's concern is that the building is safe, habitable, and we are currently within the budget realm and ahead of project schedule.
Good. Any questions or comments from the board? Chris?
Thank you for your efforts in there. So to be clear, it's safe for students and teachers, the air tests have been done, and everybody in the building's been briefed on it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And just to be clear also, in response to, prior to the submission to the EPA, we have to do another air and wipe test and submit that to the EPA before we submit the additional plan.
All right.
And so I'll update to the selectmen as that, that plan becomes more fruition to make sure that everybody's in the loop and knows what the game plan is moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
Quickly, thank you very much for the update. At the RTM the other night, if I heard them correctly, they referred to the 70-30, that the 70% that are done and the 30% that you'll do next summer. And there was a comment made about, we've done the less difficult ones now and saving the more difficult ones for next summer. Is there any truth to that? Does that make sense?
I would defer to Mr. Cushman from Gilbane on that
Okay.
response to that question.
So Eric Cushman, project executive with Gilbane, in charge of the project. So this summer, we tackled approximately 70% of the openings. We
Right.
tackled the openings that had brick removal and replacement to do to finish up all the masonry work.
Okay.
Next summer, we have some work that's a little more difficult on the glass and glazing side. We have a little curtain wall, some larger openings, which will physically take longer. So we don't expect to finish early next summer. It'll still be a summer slammer for us to get in and out. However, we're confident that by finishing the 70% of the windows and the masonry openings, we solidified our plan to be complete in summer of 2018. So it is correct to say a couple of them are harder next year.
Okay.
So.
But you feel that you're far enough ahead today that you'll have the extra bandwidth and budget to get through that next summer, is what I'm hearing?
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think, and that is really my question. What I'm hearing is that at this point, we're on budget and we're on schedule.
Correct.
So that, obviously, subject to whatever happens in the future, as projects are. But at this point, everything we know says that we can expect to finish on budget and on schedule, subject to new information, possibly what the mitigation plan is when we're working with the EPA. But except for that kind of big question, everything else is okay. Is that correct?
Yes, obviously there's a lot of unknowns in regards to the next step and what that may be, and we'll update as things may, and we just don't know what we don't know at this point. So I'll make sure to keep you updated.
All right. Any further questions from the board?
No?
With that, thank you both very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate the update.
Appreciate it.
All right, next up, from the Director of Parks and Recreation. This requires Board of Finance and RTM approval. And this is to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Parks and Rec. Resolved that the bond appropriation entitled a resolution appropriating $250,000 for costs associated with planning, design, and obtaining cost estimates for the renovation or replacement of the clubhouse and golf cart barn at Smith Richardson Golf Course and for the other site and grounds improvements, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, consisting of 3 pages, be and hereby is approved. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second.
All right, and Anthony, if you could take us through this, as I understand it, just to set the stage, this is the typical seed money or initial capital that we provide for most building considered projects, like our schools, that type of thing?
Yep, that's
so that they
exactly what
have,
this is.
so they can get started with
Exactly.
the appropriate
That
professionals.
building committee that we just had. Yes.
Okay.
That's what we're looking for.
All right, anything else we need to know about that?
No, not at this time, other than the building needs to be renovated. So the seed money will help.
Yeah, and this totally gets kind of wrapped into the overall bonding project, so it's not like anything separate or additional to.
Correct.
This is part of the
This is part
total
of the total
project
amount.
budget and will be included as we go forward from that standpoint.
That's correct.
All right, any questions or follow-up from the board?
No, I'm good.
Well, real quick, will the owner's rep we hired last time, will they draw on this $250,000, or is this separate from them?
This is, the owner's rep is basically going to be paid for by the building committee budget. The only difference was that we hired him ahead of the building committee,
right.
but functionally after that, it's the same as any other building committee. So this, in essence, is giving money for the owner's rep to get started, as well as the architect and any other professionals they need to complete the design to get us to the point where we can get a solid number to request the boards to fund.
Good, I'm good.
Good. All right. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Anthony, thank you very much. Next up, from the Chief of Police. To hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the police chief. Whereas it is in the best interest of the town of Fairfield to expend a total of $81,258 over a 3-year period on engine maintenance costs on a 33-foot Safe Boat Defender and the 23-foot Safe Boat, and replacement of 3 engines on a 33-foot Safe Boat Defender, $60,944 of said cost to be funded by a grant available under the Federal Department of Homeland Security Port Security Grant Program, PSGP, and a 25% match from the town of Fairfield of $20,314. Now therefore, be it resolved that Michael C. Tetro, first selectman of the town of Fairfield, be and hereby is authorized to accept in the name and on behalf of the town of Fairfield a Federal Department of Homeland Security Port Security Grant in the amount of $60,994. Further resolved that the first selectman is hereby authorized on behalf of the town of Fairfield to sign and execute any and all necessary documents to secure said grant, and further resolved that $81,258 is hereby appropriated to fund said maintenance and purchases. May I have a motion to accept?
Motion.
A second?
Second.
All right. Chief, if you'll take us through this, what does this mean?
Yes, sir. So first of all, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Deputy Chief Chris Liddy is here, as well as, although he's not here, Officer Jim Wiltsey put a lot of effort into the grant, as he has with several of the other marine assets that we have. Just to take you through as a refresher for our marine unit, we've had a marine unit on the water in the town of Fairfield, or for the town of Fairfield, for the last 50 years, and have kind of remained in that same footprint of officers during the seasons of April through November. We maintain 2 marine assets, 2 boats that we have on the water, as well as a non-boat, the term escapes me, so a jet ski, so forgive me, that was also obtained. But to refresh your memory, in 2009, FEMA awarded us a $488,000 through a port security grant, a vessel to the town of Fairfield. And in 2015, and that required no percentage upfront cost from the town. That was just a grant that we received. In 2015, we had an opportunity to apply for another grant. That grant in 2015 enabled us to replace our second asset that we had. That boat was older. In all likelihood, we would have came forward for a total funding through the town. We were able to get that grant to fund that. That was a 75-25% match, and it required us to, actually it might not have been 75-25, but it did require a town match, and we came before the boards and were able to sustain or match that grant through our operating budget. We don't plan for these things, but obviously if you have a choice of receiving a grant and kind of making priorities with regards to your expenditures, we found a way to, through our operating costs, to make those decisions so that we could obtain the vessel, $289,000 for the town of Fairfield. Now we're before you now because we've applied for a sustainment grant for our 2 vessels. It is a Homeland Security grant, and we were awarded that grant. That grant is requiring a 25% match by the town of Fairfield, which in essence comes to a total town of Fairfield match of, and maybe you could help me out here a little bit, Chris, $20,314. So ultimately, to get this sustainment grant, we would have to expend from the town budget $20,314 to match that. Now, just to give you an idea, generally, on a yearly basis, we estimate, depending upon sustainment money, we estimate in our budget, in our operating budget, that we roughly spend $6,200 to $6,500 a year in our operating budget to sustain our boats. They're obviously out there during the summer months. So by receiving this grant and expending this money that way, the $6,200 over the 3-year period, we'll have a savings in that budget. We anticipate whatever we would have spent to sustain the boat anyway, we now have to pay towards the grant. In addition to that, we get additional sustainment money. Now, that sustainment money will allow us to continue to sustain the vessels, with the whole goal of this grant being able to purchase 3 new engines for our larger boat, which ultimately, at the 3-year period of this grant, our boat would need those engines replaced anyway. So again, similar to other purchases we've made through grants, inevitably, if we didn't receive the grant, we're probably looking at 2 or 3 year period, we would come forward to the boards to say we need to replace those engines. By obtaining this grant and prioritizing the spending and the sustainment money for the boats that we inevitably would each year, we're actually able to obtain those 3 engines.
Any questions from the board?
No, I'm in favor of this. People don't realize at home, we get a lot of calls from Coast Guard. Hey, can you go get this person? Or the first call someone makes in an SOS is usually the Coast Guard or whatever. We don't get any reimbursement from the Coast Guard for having such a wonderful service, whether it's police or fire. And oftentimes other towns will make the call too. So any opportunity I have to take federal money, I look at as that is our reimbursement from them for doing what I think they should be doing more of, if they can. But they're becoming also reliant on us, so I'm happy to take this in lieu.
All right. Mr. Garley?
I completely agree with all of that. My question is, how old are the motors that are on there that we need to replace? Because we did some motor replacement not that many years back, but I just don't recall.
And I'm going to ask maybe Deputy Chief Liddy if he knows how old the engines are.
Approximately.
They're original.
Excuse me, Chris, if you could come up to the podium and...
They are original engines purchased in 2009. They came with the boat.
Okay.
So we're 7 years into it.
Okay.
And those replacements of the boats, I believe, were for one of the boats that we got rid of years ago.
Okay.
So this is the first time that we're replacing the engines on the 2009
On the
vessel.
9, right.
And the 2015 vessel is intact.
Beautiful. Good. Thank you for that clarification.
Just building on, what's the life cycle for the engines?
Chris? Or Deputy Chief Liddy?
We'd be happy to get 10 years out of them. We think we can. We're going to maintain our maintenance schedule and up it a little bit. If we're able to get 12 years out of it, even better. And we can.
So we're replacing them after 9. Can we take advantage of this grant, buy the engines, and not install them on the boats right away?
Yes, and that is the plan.
Because we've got, basically, 2009 to here is 8 years. You're saying 10 to 12 is a more realistic, if we can kind of extend our life cycle on these a bit?
And that is our plan.
Okay. And then, as I understand this, we had normally allocated about $6,000 to $7,000 as our normal maintenance budget that we put into our boats. We're going to take that normal maintenance budget that we put into our boats and spend it to match this grant for overall maintenance, which buys us 3 new engines. Does it take care of the other maintenance that we have to do? Are we able to do the maintenance we would normally do? Are we getting any extra maintenance? Are we getting, when this is all said and done, are we getting our normal maintenance and 3 new engines?
And a little bit more. It
Okay.
allows us to.
When you say a little bit more, what's a little bit more?
About $10,000 a year for a 3-year period in normal maintenance.
Okay.
So
And
we're actually getting more maintenance.
Okay, but when it's maintenance, what are we going to do with the more maintenance? I mean, at some point, you put oil in the engines, you check them out, you check the spark plugs, everything else. I mean, you just do that more. What's the more maintenance
So,
part?
they have electrical issues that may crop up. They have inverters and different,
Okay. If they don't crop up, what are we doing with the money?
well,
We've also scheduled 5 routine maintenance appointments so that they can take a good look at the
Right.
engines, do all the little things at $387 per vessel per maintenance look at. So we're going to spend a little bit more.
So it's like $2,000 over and above what we would normally spend?
Correct.
On
With
an
the goal
annual
being-
annual basis?
With the goal being to keep the engines as long as we possibly can. so we save at the back end of this.
And I think to answer your question, obviously, if there's expenditures that we're not using for the boat, then it's a savings to the town. So generally, it's like the upkeep of any vehicle. It's that normal maintenance, and then that's that ongoing maintenance.
Well, see, that's part of what I'm trying to get to, is if this, in a normal match, for a construction project where you're going to expend all the money, you spend the money and you spend the match. If you're saying that, how do we make sure that we expend the match on this if it's maintenance and we don't need the maintenance? What do we spend? Because it sounds like we have to spend this money over 3 years.
We do.
So if magically we needed no maintenance for some stroke of luck, we'd still have to spend this much money, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think.
So do we have a plan in place to make sure that we spend that money so we meet our match requirement if we don't have quite all the maintenance that we expect to do?
Well, the major component of it, the 29,000, forgetting the engines, is for regularly scheduled maintenance appointments. So the vast majority is going to be expended in that. There are some other things that, and I apologize, I don't know what a Tiber Plus is, but we've budgeted for a Tiber Plus included in this grant, which is some kind of part to the engine.
That's part of my concern, is one of making sure that we meet our requirements to get the grant. That in fact we spend the money we have to spend, even if it's not needed for maintenance. That we make sure that we spend it appropriately so it qualifies for the matching piece. So they're not coming back after us and saying, yep, you got 3 new engines, but we want our money back now because you didn't appropriately match the funds we gave you.
So I apologize. I'm more used to times having discussions with you where you're telling me, make sure we try not to spend all the money. I can assure you that we will meet the requirements to spend our responsibility to.
Yeah, I just want to make sure the federal government's not coming
Understood.
back and saying, we're clawing back this money because you didn't opt.
Understood.
And it's a little bit different because this is over 3 years, and it's an operating department match, not and it's for maintenance. And generally, maintenance is there's some preventive maintenance that's proactive, but there's a certain amount of maintenance that's reactive, like, hey, it breaks, we fix it, right? The tires get this bad, then we replace them. So in this case, I want to make sure that we have a plan in place, so we're not in a situation where 3 years from now, the federal government is coming back saying, we have audited you and you did not spend the money properly, so you didn't spend enough of it in the categories that we allow for, so you didn't meet the grid. So that's what I'm asking you to be cautious of,
So,
to make sure that we're not in that situation.
and I would add that this is not the first time we've received this grant. It's actually the second, and we met all requirements the last time around, which I think is part of the reason we were awarded this particular grant.
Okay, very good. Any other questions on the board?
Just a couple quick ones.
Go ahead.
Following up on Mr. Tetro's comments, I think I understand it. It's roughly $400 an appointment times 5 engines over the course of 3 years, which gets you to roughly $29,000, $30,000. If you did all those appointments, so that would be roughly $10,000 a year in all-in maintenance for all 5 engines. Am I reading that correctly?
Exactly.
Okay, so that kind of makes sense. The other question is, the $20,000 match that we have, is it my understanding that is that going to come out of this year's current budget at one time?
It's $6,000 a year over 3 years, I think.
Yes, yeah.
Also,
So this is a 3-year grant, so we're
Right.
able to take the money that we would normally spend each year for the next 3 years.
also, we're allowed to do it over 3 years versus paying 20 all at once.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that.
And that's what I was concerned about at the end of 3 years.
Right.
Did we spend it properly? Because we're not spending it all at once, so we can't get audited all at once. We've got to make sure that we spend it properly, so they don't come back and say, yeah, for the last 2 years you did okay, but that first year, that $6,000 was not within our guidelines.
Okay,
Understood.
that makes sense. Thank you.
All right, anything else? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we make a motion to waive the reading of that?
Sure, I'll
It's
take
up to
it.
you.
Yeah. Item 7, from the Director of Public Works, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you. Who's here from Public Works?
Anthony. Oh,
Hello.
Mr. Carey, will you summarize this motion for the folks at home since we did not read it?
Yes, so basically, we have a project that's pending for the design, the investigation and design of the new Riverside Drive, Turney Creek tide gates and bulkhead wall. This project's actually been planned out over time through our capital. There was an existing grant that was awarded to the town through the Department of Housing Community Development Block Grant that didn't go forward for $300,000 for a project that was going to look at the improving the dike system in Pine Creek, but the Army Corps of Engineers wasn't going to participate that, so it became a moot point. Department of Housing is allowing us to move that money now from that project that's not going forward to this project, which is an extension of another planning project we had done, the Riverside Drive Coastal Resiliency Plan, and we're just adding that to this. So it's something that needs to be done. We're actually in the process of getting bids and pricing to move that project forward. But I can answer any questions about the project itself.
Any questions from the board?
No?
I'm good.
Let's see, one, we're moving this money just literally from one grant to another.
That's correct.
It's a project that we're going forward with, and this in fact will save the town money on the second project.
That's correct as well. There's no match for the grant.
Yeah, I know we've been around on this on several times, so I
Yes.
thank you for that, but I just want to be clear on what we're doing. And the net result of this is we get to use an existing grant and it saves the town money.
That's correct.
Any comments from the public? You'll just come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and give us your feedback.
I'm Dick Mahusky. I live at 241 Colonial Drive, and I'm the chairman of the Flood and Erosion Control Board. I just want to let the board know that we're intimately aware of this project and we support it wholeheartedly. This came out of that study, and as I said in the letter I submitted to you, this was the number 2 item on the recommendations at the end of that study. So it's a necessary thing. It provides a fundamental flood mitigation measure for the Turney Creek area and all the residents that abut the marsh on the drier side of this tide assembly. So we support it.
Dick, thank you. Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Any further comments by the board?
Nope.
Ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Mr. Carey. Oh, may I have, sorry. May I have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion we need? All in favor?
Aye.
Sheila, thank you for keeping us honest on that. All right. Item number 8 from the Director of Public Works, to hear, consider, and act upon the following resolution as recommended by the Director of Public Works. With the board's permission, I'd like to ask a couple questions of Mr. Hurley and to see whether we need to take this up at this time, if that's appropriate.
Okay with that?
All right. Bill, I know the motion is not before us yet. I wanted to clarify some administrative points on this. One, you're kind of subbing for Joe Michelangelo.
That's
tonight.
correct.
And I think in the other discussions I've had on this item, it's been with Joe as opposed to yourself. So, one, thank you for stepping up. Second, this item, we've gotten some communication here at the board, and it's my understanding this hasn't gone before the Flood and Erosion Control Board yet to have a full presentation and kind of get their feedback and comments on it. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, yes.
All right. So is there any deadline we're facing on this?
I'm not aware of a specific deadline, but many of the Department of Housing grants, they really want you to expend them funds as soon as possible. And being that, the way the calendar works, if we were to, say, miss the November RTM meeting, that pushes it to December. And we are, for the wastewater treatment plant hardening project, trying to go for a spring 2018 construction. So is it 100% imperative? It's probably not a, quote, drop dead deadline, but in the same token, it would keep the project on schedule if we were to, if you were to approve it.
As I understand it, and if I can just summarize for the board here at the moment and fill in any pieces I miss them, and based on feedback from the Flood and Erosion Control Board, one, we're going forward with this the WPCA project because that's a separate grant that we okayed and we approved without any thought of this money. So
correct.
At that time. So
Correct.
that should go forward without a hitch. In terms of this money, the question is, do we move it from what it was originally targeted for to this project, or are there other options? And I think it's those other options we're looking for to have fully vetted to make sure this is the correct move. And everybody's had a chance to talk about that and have their input on it. We may in fact come back and use it on this project, but we really want to make sure that that's been vetted properly with the Flood and Erosion Control Board at that level. So if the overall project in terms of the hardening, that's going forward, so we're not doing anything to disrupt that time schedule or timing.
Correct, and I just want to also let you know that I'm Bill Hurley, engineering manager, and I have here Laura Pooley, the senior civil engineer, who has been working a lot, almost extensively, with Ty and Bond, the consultant for the hardening project. And that project, I believe, the initial, the cost estimate was a little bit lower than it is today, so transferring this money to that would benefit the hardening project.
Well, if the issue is those estimates are coming in higher, I think we need a presentation on that project as opposed to just on this, because that project technically isn't authorized to spend any money over and above what it's already been authorized at.
All right,
So
let
if
me-
the numbers
as I
come in
said,
higher, so.
Let me just make
I'm
sure,
not-
is that correct, Laura, that the estimates are?
So,
I
Mr.
just
Hurley,
wanna make sure.
I'm not trying to put you on a spot.
No, I
I appreciate you filling in here. What I'm going to propose to our board is that we take no action on this, and that we get Mr. Michelangelo first in front of the Flood and Erosion Control Board to vet these things out and get whatever feedback the Flood and Erosion Control Board wants to give us based on a full presentation, and have a chance to review some other options. And if the WPCA project is experiencing some budget difficulties, that we get an update on that project as soon as possible, so that the WPCA and this board know what's taking place there.
And again, just want to, before we hit any panic buttons or whatever, as with any project that goes out to bid, if these were just the engineer's estimates that said it would be, higher, it may not come in higher at all. I mean, I just want to make that clear.
Well, that's a good
That's
reason
it.
for having an update, and I appreciate you wanting to caution us on both sides of that, both the fact we may be over and we may not be over. But I think it's appropriate then that this board get a better update, if that's,
Move forward with
you
that.
guys okay with that?
I completely agree. I think it's
So if
better.
we take no action on this, we're just done with this item.
Yep.
Thank you for stepping up in the batter's box here and giving us a shot. Any further feedback from the board?
No, I
Thanks,
just,
Bill.
go ahead, Chris, I'm sorry.
I was just, thank you, Bill.
No. Thank you, Bill, for the update, and I think it makes most sense to get it right and make sure that we make best use of all these funds and grants in conjunction with all the projects to safeguard our beach from flooding, so I think it's a smart move.
And just to be clear, since that item had to be approved by this board to move forward, it will not be on the Board of Finance agenda for tomorrow night. And we'll have a chance to catch that up. We can take it up at a later meeting in October for us.
Sure.
It can still get on the Board of Finance meeting for November and potentially be to the RTM in late November. All right, that's item 8. Now we're up to item 9, which is from the town attorney. This would also require RTM approval, and this is to hear, consider, and act upon amendments to the following cell tower leases. Is it okay to take these all at once, gentlemen?
Please.
1, Cellco Partnership doing business as Verizon Wireless, 3965 Congress Street cell tower lease. Item 2, T-Mobile Northeast LLC, 100 Reef Road cell tower lease. Item 3, Sprint Spectrum Realty Company LLC, 100 Reef Road cell tower lease. Item 4, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, 100 Reef Road cell tower lease. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Mr. Lesser, if you'll take us through these.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Just very briefly, these are all extensions of existing leases. The leases were approximately 15 years. They started all around the same time, and they've all come due. We negotiated these leases. The items 2, 3, and 4 are leases that the town had previously sold the right to collect the income from. Maybe 10, 12 years ago, I think we got a lump sum, and some other company, some finance company was collecting the rents. They have now reverted to us, so we are going to start collecting the rents, I believe, on all 3 of them again, and, or if not immediately, within the very near future. So they've all come up for renewal, so it's time to renew. We got different proposals on various leases here, most of them involving paying less. First Selectman, I don't know if you will recall, but said, no, we're not going to take less. We want at least what we're getting. So what we agreed on all of these was simply to continue the payments, the stream of payments as they existed. They all have 3% annual cost of living increases in them. So they've all gone up greatly over 15 years. And so the leases all call for the continuation of this year's payment, and then 3 years plus 3% on into the future. They're all, I believe, 5-year leases with extensions, typically 2 or 3 extensions after that, but they will require RTM approval. Just so you'll know, I did a quick calculation, and the 4 leases together net the town about $180,000 a year right now.
Okay.
We get good rents for them. I mean, more than other people get, quite frankly.
Just to be clear, item 1, that's an existing lease. They had been paying directly to the town.
Yes.
Items 2, 3, and 4, we got a lump sum payment for those in prior years. So how much new income on an annual basis will 2, 3, and 4 give us?
Okay, so 2 gives us 37, I'm rounding off here, 37,300 a year.
Yep.
3, the Sprint Spectrum, is 57,400, and 4 is about 50,000 a year.
107.
It's about 180 total,
137,
178.
144. Right, but 144 in new incremental revenue is what I'm getting at.
That is correct, that we were not getting.
Okay.
Now, it may not kick back this year, but very, very soon. Some of them, I think, are, some may have another year or so.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to meet with the CFO, identify how much of that money comes in fiscal 18, and what the projection is for fiscal 19.
No problem.
So we can make sure we include that. But
No problem.
$150,000 in additional revenue is a very nice number. Any comments from the board or questions?
Did we have an outside company do the negotiations for this, or did we do it in-house?
We did it. I think we did it ourselves. I mean, they wanted to reduce it. We said, no, we don't want to reduce it.
So we took up individual negotiations with all 4 different companies at once? They were all due at the same time?
Roughly. It's been going on, some have been going on for a period of a few months, I think.
The problem is 3 of those are grouped together, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that agreement ended. So it's not that the 3 individual things ended, but that agreement ended with our third-party,
It's like a finance company,
Yeah.
I think.
yeah, I think that was back in the early 2000s that deal was cut.
That
I think
makes
it's
sense.
been about a dozen years since that we've been getting the money.
Anything else from the board?
Just quickly, with all the data usages, are there any changes to any of these agreements for extra equipment to go up onto the towers?
No.
No, it's pretty much all the same equipment, the same size, looks the same, for the most part?
Yes, and when they want to change out equipment, they come back to us. They have to get our permission to change out equipment.
Okay.
But they really have to get Purist.
Yeah, I'm not even sure they need that for existing towers, but they always come, they send us a notice saying that they want to change this or that. They're not taking more space, they're just updating the equipment.
Okay.
That's happened a number of times in the past.
Yeah, it's not always clear as to whether we have complete veto power over that.
Yeah, I know there was an issue with the amount of space, and then there was issue with, the technology changes every year, right? Different boxes, different pieces that
At
need
least
to go
every
up there.
couple of years, we get some notice, yeah.
Okay. But there's been no issues, and there's no significant changes to those regulations in these new lease agreements?
No, there is not, no.
Okay.
Any further comments from the board? Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you,
Mr.
sir.
Lesser, thank you.
Thank you.
And again, you will get together with finance so we know what the fiscal impact is this year and next year on those. Please, thank you. right. Next up, item 10, from the tax collector. To consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount of $3,313.10. May I have a motion to accept?
Make a motion?
Second?
Second.
All right, that item is before us. Any changes or amendments?
No, I checked, the numbers match.
Okay, good. All right, then all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That item's done. Next, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.
Yeah.
We met your deadline.
Oh, I appreciate it.